Part 1. Turning a Federal Period Finial. For woodworking DVDs, furniture drawings, tools, and project articles, please visit my website at www.americanfederalperiod.com/woodshop.html. Successful turning, of course, begins with the lathe tools, and they have to be impeccably sharp. And this is what I use as a roughing gouge. This is a tool that came with my lathe as part of a set of turning tools. And it's very poorly made. You can see it has almost no curvature. A genuine roughing gouge is almost semicircular in cross-section. It's also made from quite poor steel. I could probably sharpen this with a file, but it does produce serviceable results. And to sharpen it, I used to treat the lathe tools like I would a bench chisel or a carving tool and polish it to a mirror edge, but that is really overkill for this. So now I just work with the tool as it comes right off of a 120 grit wheel in my bench grinder. And the next tool that you would most often use in turning would be the parting tool or cutoff tool. And this is a 1/4 inch diamond form one. That just means that the center is thicker than the top and bottom edges, and that reduces the friction somewhat. And this also is used right off the 120 grit wheel. And the next tool is a fingernail gouge, and that gets its name from the grind that looks kind of like a fingernail. And this is also used straight off the grinder, but this is a little bit more difficult to grind. You can't just rotate it across the wheel like this. You have to actually twist and rotate at the same time to cut back those edges to get that characteristic fingernail grind. And I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but you can see that that results in some facets on the cutting edge, but doesn't seem to hinder its performance. There are jigs available for this that take the human element out of it, but I've not used any of those. And then there are the Skew Chisel. Now this is a square cross-section Skew Chisel, and I've modified this one a little bit from what you normally would use. It's got a pretty blunt edge, as you can see, not much of a rake to it, and also the cutting edge is slightly curved. And this is great for following convex shapes. It's almost impossible to get this one to catch and dig in. Unfortunately, for the finial we're doing today, it's almost useless because it can't get into sharp corners because of that toe being ground back. So the actual Skew Chisel that I'm going to use is this one here. This is an oval skew, and this does help quite a bit with the catching, having that oval shape, because it keeps the point of contact a little more uniform in relationship to the cutting area. And you can see, as opposed to the other one, this one has a much sharper rake to it. And this tool is also used straight from the grinder. I've read a lot about how Skew Chisels should be sharpened, and a lot of sources say that a hollow ground edge is detrimental, but I've not found that to be the case. I can work quite comfortably with this one. And then a kind of a specialty tool that's going to be part of this finial today is this 1/16 inch parting tool that came with a Dremel set. This is a difficult tool to use, but sometimes when you need it, it's the only thing available. It's made from quite poor steel. It has almost no mass to it, and it's not very rigid, so you have to take very light cuts with that, and you'll see more about that later. I'm here at the lathe now, and the workpiece has been chucked in the lathe. I've got the tool rest, and it's set up about 1/8 inch below the height of the turning axis of the lathe. And the tool rest is one that I had made at a machine shop. It consists of a steel rod that's slotted to accept this piece of 1/4 inch thick bar stock, and then it's got a set screw here to hold it in place. And what this does is it allows me to match the tool rest to the work at hand. That way I can get it as close as possible. If I had a wide, like the 12 inch wide tool rest that comes with the lathe, I would probably hit the housings here before I could get really as close as I need to be. And having it close like that is not only a concern as far as safety, but it also helps with controlling the tools. The less that's cantilevered over from the tool rest, the more stable and the more controllable your tools will be. And then the tools themselves are in this shelf-like arrangement, just a piece of plywood with some holes drilled in it, bolted to the bed of the blade. I have a 5/8 inch open-end wrench that I'm going to use as a go, no-go gauge to form a tenon on the end of the finial. Got a pencil. I've got that small cutoff tool here. I've got a fine cut file that has a safed edge. This is kind of cheating, but sometimes it's invaluable to refine small details. I've got the template that I'm going to use to turn the finial by. This was one that I found in a book and scanned it and then blew it up to the proper size. Got a piece of 320 grit sandpaper. that's all I should really need. If I'm having to drop back to a coarser grit, it means I'm not doing a good job with the tools. If you have to do a lot of sanding, your details are going to end up looking mushy. And then I have a series of outside calipers set up and marked what portion of the finial they're for. That way I can quickly get the major diameters down and then go back and do the refining of the shapes. And I think that is it, so now it's time to start turning. Before I turn the lathe on, I want to make sure that the workpiece is very secure in there and that all the locking levers are dogged down. Don't want to have anything flying out unexpectedly. And the gap that you see here between the tool rest and the workpiece looks very good right now, but if I rotate it slightly, you can see it's large enough to get your finger down in, and that's dangerous, but there's nothing you can do about it at this stage. But as soon as the workpiece is a cylinder, I'll move the tool rest forward and make it safe again. And I'm going to start with the roughing gouge, of course, and I'm going to work the ends down till they're round and then come in here and do the center till it's a cylinder. And the reason I do that, if you get those ends out of the way, you eliminate or at least reduce the possibility of pulling a big chip out of the work here and ruining the blank. So I'll start the lathe up and do that. Now I can move the tool rest forward. Now that the piece is down to a cylinder, I can take and mark my transition points with the story stick that I have and start by turning a 5/8 inch tenon on this end here. You can see that I started and went in extra deep right here at the end, giving me a place for the lathe tool to go in. You can see that it was kind of jumping. You don't want to get it caught because it can come out and hit you. And then once I got that established, I put the cutting tool here in place, and as I'm cutting in, I'm pushing the wrench down this direction, and once it slides into place, then I can keep moving down and down, down, and that results in a very precise tenon. Now the next step is to go in and cut in the full diameter right here using the cutoff tool and or the parting tool and the caliper. You can see how quickly that went. This is the base of the finial. This is that ring right here, This is the bulb of the finial up here, and now I can go and take out this waste very quickly with the fingernail gouge and get the overall shape established. It very quickly takes shape. Now the next step is to get back in here with the story stick and reestablish some of these areas of transition here so that we can be sure we know where we're supposed to be cutting. And now I'm going to use the Skew Chisel and come in and refine this urn part here. Going to come in with the point, jab it in there, jab it in here, and then carefully roll it over. And I'm going to stop that along the way and show you the way that the Skew Chisel has to be held so that it won't grab and cause a spiral cut.